Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting of June 16th, 2025. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that we all rise for the singing of our national anthem. Thank you very much to our very own Tennille Towns for the singing of our national anthem, as well as our marketing department of the images of our city. I would now like to take the opportunity to read the land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge that these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. Thank you for that opportunity. I will now move on to the adoption of the previous council meeting minutes and recognize Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, unfortunately, I'll have to pass the buck. My e-scribe is not working.
I'll move on to Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like Council to adopt the minutes of the Council meeting held June 2nd as presented.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Seeing no one in the queue with errors or omissions, I'll call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to the adoption of today's agenda, recognizing Councillor O'Toole.
Hang on here. I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you so much. Not aware of any additions or omissions, so that motion is in order. I'll call the question. Please vote. And that too carries unanimously. Moving on to the delegation portion of today's agenda. If you were not aware, or if you're watching from home, delegations are encouraged to come to council, speak with council. There is opportunities at 3 p.m. and if we are having an evening session, then there's also an opportunity at 6 p.m. Today there is an evening session, and with that, it's a really simple form. You go online, click the form, tell us what you'd like to come speak to council about, and then we invite you up to the table. So first on our agenda, the Veterans Memorial Garden, and I'll give Ms. Charbonneau a moment to come. Your microphone is now on, and so once situated, if you want to pull that microphone a little closer to you, it's not attached to the table. Take 5 minutes, address council, and then council may have some questions for you. We do deal with our delegation business at the end of the session, which of course you're very welcome to stick around, or we will follow up with you following our conversation. But welcome, and if you could, for those watching, ladies, if you could please introduce yourselves.
My name is Renee Charbonneau, Executive Director for the Canadian Motorcycle Tourism Association, owners of Veterans Memorial Gardens and Interpretive Centre, and this is one of our key volunteers, Wanda Zenner.
Great. Thank you for coming, Ms. Zenner. Ms. Charbonneau, if you want to take your 5 minutes and address council, that'd be great.
Veterans Memorial Gardens over the last number of years has done a lot of very hard work connecting this community back to its past and its history. And today alone, I have connected with 3 World War II families, families of the fallen, who are going to be attending our Dine and Dance June 28th. A lot of the work that we do relies upon sponsorship, relies upon partners to make these things happen. And one of the things that we really need some partnership on is the gardens themselves. We need water. We cannot afford to be paying Aquatera for sewage fees for the water we use to feed our fruit trees, where the fruit and everything else goes back into the community through our volunteers and through the people that we donate to. Right now, our food security program at Veterans Gardens serves 12 families weekly. We have various programs where we receive donations in, and we take those quietly to elders who are raising their grandchildren. And so we have a lot of people that we help with haskaps, with raspberries, with gooseberries, plums, apples, and we need some help to manage that. Financially, this year has been one of the most difficult years we've gone through, and getting a little relief on the water bill with no rain, and getting relief on the sewer side of things as well would be a very welcome addition to our bottom line right about now. So that's one of the biggest things. We have a cube. We can put it in the corner right by the corner of the fence so they could just drive up, unscrew the top. We don't even have to be there if we do this right. And, 1,000 gallons of water every few weeks to keep our trees growing would be really, really appreciated. So that's the biggest reason we're here. And to find out if council is coming to our dine and dance and our ceremony on the 28th, of course.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, ladies. I do have a few councillors in the queue with questions. I'll recognize Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton, and thanks, ladies, for coming. So do you have an estimate, ballpark, about what your annual water bill and sewage bill is?
Well, we've never had a year where we've never had rain like this. Usually we have too much rain. This year it's been pretty grim, so I really don't have an estimate. I know that just last month, with our water consumption going up the way it did, we probably added about $25 or $30 to that bill, but we have been being very, very conservative and only giving our trees, we're hand watering everything. Takes about 4.5 hours to do, but we're doing that to conserve water because we just don't need a great big $500 bill.
Yeah, so from what I'm picking up, again, with Aquatera, there's two sides to the bill. There's the water that you use, and they assume or bill proportionately that water is going into a
sewer drain,
into the sewer system, and so you're paying for that, where in fact these are just water going to trees. Have you approached Aquatera for any measure of sponsorship?
Yes, I have, and that is not something they are willing to budge on.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton, and thank you very much, Wanda and Renee, for coming on in with this request. Actually, Grant asked 2 of my questions, but luckily I had a 3rd question here to ask you. So your request, the duration of this is just for the summer months, or would this be perpetual?
This would be for the summer months for this year. And again, next year, we don't know what the weather's going to be, right? Most years we're able to manage. I mean, we've done so for almost 5 years now, but we just can't manage this year. It's just too dry.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the important things is, as well as, these gardens are beautiful, and I'm sure each and every one of you has been out there to see them. And the quality of the trees and the flowers is based on the water. And I mean, a little drab just doesn't do it. They need to have a really good soaking, and especially come fall, so they're all ready for winter as well. And it is probably one of the most scenic sites that Grande Prairie offers. And we certainly want to keep it as beautiful as what we can. So any little help with this water situation would be greatly appreciated.
Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for coming in, ladies. I had the same question as Councillor Berg, but now my head's shifting to, I'm wondering, have you approached Klon or some of the other landscaping companies in town that do watering services to see if they could maybe come and water your trees and offer them a sponsorship of some kind, and maybe do some horse trading that way with... We
already do a lot of horse trading with Klon. They do all of our pruning and donate a lot of labor into the gardens. So asking them to step up for one more thing, I'm not sure I'm quite ready.
And I just use Klon as an example. There's lots of different companies that do water service in Grande Prairie. Just, I wonder if there's maybe an opportunity to reach out to some other water service providers and say, could you help us water our trees? And maybe we can do something with you back, because Aquatera was the better option, but if they're not playing ball, then maybe that's another option for you ladies to look at using.
Okay.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Another question came in regarding sponsorship. So typically the city of Grande Prairie, we sponsor events and other community initiatives. Have you considered filling out a sponsorship application for the city, or have you had any sponsorships from the city that would maybe preclude you from applying for a small water sponsorship?
No, not that I'm aware of. I didn't know that I could apply to the city for sponsorship for water. At the end of the day, we haven't had much sponsorship from the city. I missed the festival's application date by one day and a few things like that. So we've been kind of in one of those in-between phases as far as any funding from the city. So it would be, like you said, we have the trees right across the way being watered all the time. The city water truck is there at least twice a month, if not more. We thought if they just gave us a cube of water, we can run our own hoses and take care of things. We weren't looking to be a burden on staff, just to get some water filled in a cube, and we can take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, I know we typically, for not-for-profit organizations, we have sponsorship opportunities available. That's available online. I think the Motorcycle Tourism Association has that not-for-profit status. It sounds like a really small request. Now, most sponsorship requests that go over a certain amount, I think it's $5,000 now. It used to be $2,000. Comes to council for a direct request, but you could probably apply and see how it goes through there too.
Okay.
At that point, because it sounds like what you're looking for is probably under about $1,000 of a sponsorship.
Yeah, I think if you take the water and the sewer combined over about a 4-month period, that's, it's going to be $250 probably all summer long, knowing what we know from the May bill. I'm just going from the jump in that, right? And like I said, we have been hand watering everything, giving it the absolute bare minimum that it needs to survive. Of course, our fruit trees have taken a beating. They're not producing the fruit they should be.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, that's all I have for questions in the queue. So thank you for coming, ladies. Appreciate it. And thank you for the work that you're doing in our community. Moving on to item number 7 under reports. A couple of reports in your package today, Council. The first one being the Aquatera board appointments. As you'll see in your package, this was previously, Council was previously informed on these individuals, and today we just need to do the business that is arising. Recognizing Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I would make the motion that council authorize the mayor to vote in favor of endorsing the recommendations of the Aquatera board for the following appointments: Cal Watson and Christine Gillespie for a 3-year term each to the board.
Thanks. So that motion is in order, and for those who might be watching online, this authorizes myself to go vote, as we have 4 people that vote on the Aquatera governance structure, and this will in turn now allow me the authorization to vote as council if this motion is approved, have endorsed these individuals. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. Please vote. Councillor Plott votes in favor, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to Alberta Munis resolution. There is a resolution in your package, Council. We are looking for endorsement on this. If we do have questions, that is fine. I don't see Mr. Tarrant here, but Ms. Bailey can take any questions from that resolution. Happy to have conversation and business arising. Recognizing Councillor Blackmore.
I certainly have no questions because this has been a reoccurring theme over the last 4 years. And so I would move that council endorse the electricity distribution costs Alberta municipalities resolution.
Thanks for that motion. I will, and speaking to this, I can tell you that in the Aqua Service area, it has been identified for multiple years that the disparity between ourselves and other major centers is significant, and that divide only continues to increase. So this resolution is a renewal of other work that we continue to do as we advocate to the province for their support in reducing that disparity. This then will be, as you'll see in the package, is endorsed by Drumheller, seconded by Drumheller. This will then go to the fall session of Alberta municipalities. If renewed there by the majority of Alberta municipality members, becomes a resolution that the board, which Councillor Bressie is on, then takes as one of the resolution priorities. So I see no one else in the queue, so I'll call the question.
Bressie in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Now moving on to item 7.33, the community group funding. I will allow the ladies to get set up here, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Bailey for introduction.
Thank you so much, Mayor Clayton. Ms. Bieberdorf and Janelle will be walking us through the community funding this morning or this afternoon, and are keen to get started.
Perfect. Excuse me one second. I'll recognize Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I just want to acknowledge that I do have a conflict of interest with a few of these groups. With Community Futures, I've got a pecuniary interest in some collaborations that one of my commercial entities is doing, as well as I'm on the board of the Disc Golf Club and of the Northwest Alberta Foundation, and discussions with the city manager, and getting some advice there. If we talk about those groups individually, I'm going to excuse myself from the room, but still feel comfortable voting on the package as a whole, but won't be participating in individual discussions about those groups.
Perfect. So Councillor Bressie has singled off two in particular that he has pecuniary interest in. At that time, if council wishes to have further conversations on those items, we'll give Councillor Bressie an opportunity to declare that conflict and leave the room. But happy to have him as part of the discussion for the entire docket. And for that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Bieberdorf.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. We'll just get our screen up on for you guys. Perfect. So Ms. Esau is going to present the report today, and we'll help try to answer questions between the both of us and Mr. Willis as well. So we've got a whole team here to help answer questions. Yeah.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Council. Today we are presenting the recommendations for 2026 community group funding. This report is aligned with Policy 315 and reflects Council's amendments approved in February 2025 to include 3 funding streams. Small grants up to $10,000 per year with a maximum of $50,000 available. Medium grants up to $25,000 per year with up to a maximum of $150,000. Large grants over $25,000 per year provided on a 2-year funding cycle, and capital grants can fund up to 50% of total project costs. The city may also consider emergency funding in critical short-term situations. For the large grant stream, it supports services and operations in city-owned and partnered facilities. For 2026, funding is recommended on a 1-year basis to align with future cycles with FCSS funding timelines in 2027. Requests over $25,000 were considered under this stream. So on this slide, we have a table that summarizes the total large stream funding requested, which amounts to $1,467,896, alongside 2 options for recommended allocations. Option 1 proposes maintaining 2025 funding levels, while option 2 includes a 2% increase for those applicants who requested additional support. The medium grants fund short-term or pilot initiatives up to $25,000 per year for a max of 2 years. These grants are not intended to support ongoing operational expenses. For the small grant stream, it supports community-based programming that enhances quality of life for residents, up to $10,000 per project per year. So on this slide, we have the total allocation for medium and small stream, which is recommended. It slightly exceeds the $50,000 cap. However, this is offset by the medium stream total being under its $150,000 threshold. In option 1, most small grants allocations have been reduced from 2025 levels to accommodate increases in large grant streams while staying within the overall funding envelope. Option 2 maintains most small grant recommendations at 2025 levels, resulting in a total small stream budget of approximately $74,000. Sorry, just one more thing to note on the last slide. Some applicants are not recommended for funding following a jurisdictional scan that identified similar programs or services already offered in the community, and others were not recommended due to them receiving other funding streams within the city for FCSS funding in 2026. For capital requests, the city can fund up to 50% of eligible project costs with priority to those operating city-owned or long-term lease facilities. Capital requests are recommended for referral to 2026 budget deliberations. The total capital funding requested for 2026 was $393,780, with $333,780 recommended. The recommendations are based on financial and administrative analysis to determine financial and organizational health, previous funding levels, and requests for increases related to city-owned facility operating costs. The total proposed operational funding for option 1 is $3,971,753, maintaining 2025 overall envelope levels. Option 2 is $4,057,416, including a 2% increase where requested for large grants and small grants funded at 2025 levels. For context, the 2025 community group funding budget represented 1.56% of the city's total operating budget. In 2024, in-kind support totaled $4.4 million, for example, to cover rent and meeting space. Facility maintenance or renewal support from corporate facility management was valued at $521,000, with $228,500 in capital improvements. And with that, administration recommends that council approve the 2026 operating funding as presented in Table 1, approve the 2026 community group funding Option 1 operating grant allocations as presented in Attachment 1, and defer the 2026 capital funding request to 2026 budget deliberations as presented in Attachment 2.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your report. Now I'll open council for questions. Recognizing Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm looking under contractual agreements, and I'm not familiar with the contract we have with the Elks Hall. Although your spreadsheet, Ms. Bieberdorf, flashed up briefly said parking lot. So I'm guessing we rent their parking lot from them.
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So we have a agreement with the Elks Hall for use of their parking lot during special events. So this is the property tax refund that they get back.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Berg?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. A couple of questions just around arts and culture. So I see we've got $105,000. Who typically applies for that? I see that you were directing the photography club to apply for that. Who else might fall under that umbrella, and is it fully allocated or fully subscribed?
Thank you through the mayor. Another organization who typically applies would be Prima for their operations.
Okay. Sorry, who is that?
Prima.
Who's Prima?
Peace Region
Independent Media Arts.
Association.
Just for those who may not know your
long one.
And so is that typically fully subscribed, that grant?
Thank you through the mayor. Yeah, it typically has been the last few years. We did reallocate some of the funds to the microgrant program as well for the smaller projects, and then the major projects still remain within this budget.
Okay, and then another question. We're going to discuss this coming up at 9.1 later in our meeting. But the Art Gallery of Grande Prairie, again, they've got their request in, and I have no issue with that. But there's possibility that in 2026 they're going to have major construction. Does their budget or their request take into consideration the possibility of moving and relocating and setting up shop somewhere else?
Thank you through the mayor. Yes, we have had that conversation about what their plan is while they're closed. They do intend to still be operational within other locations. So we are working with them to find other locations to relocate some of the artwork within city facilities. So we are working through that, and they have indicated that they intend to have similar operations to what they currently have, just without the space.
Wonderful. Just wanted to make sure that was covered off. Thanks.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for the report, ladies. Appreciate it. I'm actually looking at the small stream max funding 10K area. And just a question in regards to the table. So the tables are laid out option 2% increase if council were to choose that. But underneath this table, it looks like those are the old values of what we used to give each of those organizations. Am I correct in that assessment?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, you are correct.
Okay, and just my other question in regards to environmental organizations. I noticed that Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance has almost a 50% cut in what we funded them last year. Do we fund any other environmental organizations through community group funding?
Ms. Bieberdorf.
Through the mayor, no, we don't fund any of them. So that group in particular and some of the others in the small grant, we had to reduce to support some of the large grant increases in option 1. So that's why the 2% looks a little different for option 2, because we returned them to their 2025 level, because we had reduced them significantly in option 1 to make up for the difference in the large stream. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's $19,000. My math is right, 74 to 55.
Yes. Yep. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for the report, ladies. Just a couple of quick questions. I really appreciate all the tracking on the gift in kind. Do we have I'm just trying to figure out how long have we had history of gift in kind? I'm just kind of curious if we're seeing a fairly upward trend in what we're doing for gift in kinds, or what we're modeling that off of, I guess, moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. We have tracking probably back to, I would say, 2019. It was a little, we're missing quite a few, but we've been tracking probably consistently for the last 3 or 4, I would say. So we have a lot more data now, but yeah, there certainly is an increase.
So just curious, for the gift in kind side, we have an allocated budget. There's a lot of work put into why this organization gets or that organization. How do we do that with gift in kind? Like if halfway through the year, we just get 10 more organizations to come in and say, who we want to do in a parade, we want to do an event, we want to do these things, and we just keep going. Is there a point at gift in time where administration's got like a trigger saying no go, or is it just gift in kind as long as somebody asks?
Thank you, through the mayor. Typically, if we have a request that we can manage internally within existing operational budgets, then we would proceed with it. If it was outside of existing operational budget, it would come back to council for review and approval, similar to what we did with Stampede this year with the transit and the other gift in kind requests.
Okay, and if I can have one other one, and I'll pop back in the queue. I'm just curious, I wasn't at the meeting when it was talking about the junior storm program. Had we funded this in the past? Like it's a $50,000 allocation this year. Was this something we've been doing in like 22, 23? I just don't remember that one.
Yeah, thank you, through the mayor. So we did have no-cost ice for their junior storm program last year. This year was 50% of the rental fees. And then there is an ask later on in the agenda for 2025 to have their amount that they paid for junior storm returned this year. So this is a new ask for 2026.
Okay, and just if I can just follow up on this one, can you just remind me, what is the do we currently collect any rent from the storm for ice fees or anything, or is it all basically pro bono?
Through the mayor, we do not collect any rent, but we receive revenue from ticket sales.
Okay, and sorry, I just keep saying one more, but other user groups that we do that are using our facilities for camps, I'm not seeing a lot of them on their list. So if they've applied, would they have the same opportunity for funding, or would go into the same bucket if they wanted to try to I guess put more money back into their clubs? They would be able to apply for the same process?
Yeah, through the mayor, we would, any other nonprofits eligible to apply for community group funding, so we would consider it the same as any of the other groups.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burke, you have something to add?
I just have a little bit different understanding on the storm, so I might ask Ms. Ridgway when we have a chance to just update on that. I just want to be precise on that answer on revenue from the storm.
Could you put that, before I go to the next in the queue, could you put that last slide up that had the, nope,
This one?
the one that had the, nope,
This one?
no, I think it's the one from your, there was one, the table 1 operational funding that's in your staff report. There was a tracking one that had year over year. I just want, There was something that seemed different on the slide than the report.
There's this 2025. Is this what you're looking for? 2025 versus 2026?
No, it's the total operational funding. If you don't have it, that's fine. I can come back to it.
Yeah, so this table here shows, so we had $4,339,000 in 2025. We're within a couple $100 for the 2026 option one.
Okay.
And then the option two is about a $44,000
Okay, perfect.
difference. Yeah.
Recognizing Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Looking at the operating requests under the large streams, I noticed that there's some significant asks and some significant reductions in what we gave, pointing out the Golden Age Center, GP Regional Tourism. I think I understand that one. PARDS and South Peace Regional Archives. Would that have anything to do with gift in kind allocations, or we just didn't see the same value in their applications?
Through the mayor, the recommendations were just staying within the existing funding envelope. So there hasn't been any direction to increase amounts at this point. So we just put the recommendations in based on what they currently.
Okay, so just for my own clarity, when they applied, they have 2 years of funding, and so this is what they requested for year 2, and we just said we're holding the line.
Thank you. This is just the 1 year of funding right now. So we're only looking at 1 year, and then we'll approve 2027 next year alongside FCSS funding. And just to speak to PARDS, they do receive FCSS funding. That's why they weren't recommended here.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. So, ladies, I don't see a lot of what my next question here is around provincial responsibilities. Do we track areas that are provincial responsibilities that we're funding out of this? And not saying that they don't deserve funding, because they certainly do. But do we track what the province should be funding and what we are actually funding?
Ms. Buberdorf?
Through the mayor, I would say most of those scenarios probably live within FCSS funding right now under Chief Lemieux's area. I don't know if there's anything he would have to add, but I don't think the majority of these groups, aside from Wapiti Community Support, would have provincial funding as well.
Yeah, I saw 2 or 3. It wasn't a huge amount, but still, I was just curious if we're tracking it.
Not at this time, but we certainly can.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Ridgway, welcome.
Thank you, the mayor. I just want to make sure that council was clear. Previously, events and entertainment, the previous department, received a portion of ticket sales as revenue towards our operating budget. Right now, we do not receive any of that ticketing revenue, but we do charge a ticketing fee on top of the storm ticket sales, which a portion goes to Paciolan, the ticketing programming that we use.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Plott? Okay. Thanks for that, Ms. Ridgway. Councillor Plott, you're next in the queue.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just wanted to confirm, and I think I know the answer, but I see for beach volleyball, the request we had, is that just something that's going to come to the 2026 capital budget request? Is that the November conversation for those?
Mr. Burke?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. No, we'd committed to bring that before the middle of the year, so we're just finalizing that report. So council will see that soon, and then have a decision whether they want to look at proceeding something for this year or whether they want to defer that to budget. But there'll be a decision point what council would like to do with that. So there's a report coming.
It wouldn't go in this bucket of funding, or it wouldn't go into this stream, I guess, of funding. We'd have to identify another funding source at that point if it was something we wanted to go ahead with.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. No, that was a later request that wasn't in this stream, but we will bring something here soon for council to consider. We're treating that as outside of this at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And just another one I'm just curious about. I thought a few years back we had talked about a few of these not being necessarily community group funding. So I thought, there was talk about the library and the gallery at some point just being regular operating funding components that we debate just like any other operating department. I keep seeing them live under community group funding, so I'm just wondering if there was an appetite from if I were to try to entertain something like that. How would I go about getting those put into just operational funding instead of being on the capital funding side of it?
Ms. Buberdorf?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. So, the library is under its own area of the budget. It just lives in the overall community group funding area. It's not considered in this funding. That's why we had highlighted it yellow in this table, just to indicate that their ask would still be coming. So they'll be coming in September to make their ask. So they just live in the same budget area, but they're not considered part of the overall envelope that we're making recommendations on today.
Okay, so I'm just confused why we'd put them there, not just in our regular budget then, if they're not really part of community group funding and we're putting them there, but they're kind of just highlighted and we're not debating about them. I'm just curious why they wouldn't just come as a regular operating line. Maybe I'm missing something on that. But
Mr. Burke?
I still view that they're most closely aligned with this, and looking at that as a whole picture, I think is important for the community to understand of the total package. Appreciating that we have delineated from that, but I do think it's important that the community understands the level of support that goes to community group-like things. So we're just trying to share as much information as possible. Appreciate they are still they're debated in the fall as individual asks.
Okay, and just to follow up on the library side, no,
You're on your.
nope, I'll go back in.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Ready to do business whenever you're ready, Mayor Clayton.
I'll come back to you. Councillor Palat. Jesus. There is more, but go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering about, as our library is our number one item, our second largest line item is Peace Wapiti, or Peace Library Systems. There's no, I guess, just from somebody that would like to see us giving more money to Reading University, who I think does an amazing job in our community getting youth to read. I think literacy is important coming out of a library. There's no opportunity to defund some of the amount of Peace Libraries to increase the amount to Grade 3 University, is there?
Mr. Burke.
Currently, we have an agreement with Peace Library that I would say would make it challenging in this fiscal year to do that. Saying that, we are reviewing the current agreement, and we'll be bringing information back to council here before the fall budget. Okay. I would say though that as a decision point this year, I say that would be, I would say it'd be challenging.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
Just to confirm, because I believe I have this right, the 8 items at the bottom of this spreadsheet, Grande Prairie Public Library, Arts and Culture Funding, those 8 items there, we're not voting on today. They're simply there for information.
Huberdorf?
Through the mayor, yes, they're part of the overall funding envelope. While the library is going to be coming back, the rest of them are confirming that we'll fund the arts and culture stream at that same level next year, the large-scale tourism at that same level next year.
We're not voting on them today.
Yes, they would be part of the overall table that's being voted on today.
Okay.
That being said, the large-scale tourism funding, if there was changes today, it impacts a policy. There's other things that would have to happen in order for those changes to be made.
Correct,
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Just one more question here, ladies. So of the options that were being requested to approve today, either hold still or add 2%, if a motion came forward for council to approve the 2%, just following the table column, would that also include the old values for the small stream funding? So whereas, let's say Big Brothers Big Sisters is getting $7,500 this year, but if council chose the 2% option, since it's in that table stream, are we to assume that those values would rise as well with all the other 2% values?
Thank you, through the mayor. So we would, if option 2 was selected, we would return them to their 2025 levels. So it might be a little more than 2%, but it would put them back to what they're currently being funded in 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, can you explain that to me?
So for the small stream grants, some of the recommendations were reduced in option 1 to accommodate a new ask in the large stream. Yep. So for option 2, we put them back to their 2025 levels.
Actually not a 2% increase.
It'll be more for the small stream, just 2% for the large stream groups.
Thanks. Last chance for questions for administration. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I've been thinking about this for a bit. I just want to clarify. So the storm went from $0 funding last year to we're asking for $50,000 for funding to help their junior program this year for ice rentals.
Yeah, that was there was a delegation that came. Yeah.
I'm actually really curious how we come up with the $50,000. I mean, it's like happy to support the storm and all program sports, but it's substantially higher than almost any other organization we're giving money to. And that, I mean, it's become a medium a large stream and it's leapfrogged a bunch of organizations that are in our small stream and medium stream that have been there for a long time that aren't getting their full funding. So I'm just curious how we decided to fully fund $50,000 on that one.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So the $50,000 was the amount that they asked for based on their projected rental cost of ice for the junior storm program.
I appreciate that, but I'm just curious why we decided we just say, fine, let's just give you all $50,000. And the only reason I'm asking this, and then I'm really worried about the slope this could send us on, is unless we're going to continue to raise us up, soccer, swimming, basketball, every other sport does conditioning camps as revenue streams. And I'm very worried if we approve $50,000 that we're going to see a flood of these sports agencies come in and say, what about us? And unless we're going to substantially increase this community group funding, especially in that area, I worry about us going 0 to 50 on the storm and then going next year, we can't do it all. We got to go back to 15 or 20 because we've got these other asks. And unless we're going to cut other agencies, I'm struggling with this one a lot. So appreciate the answer, but I guess I got to get that through in my head somehow.
All right, Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, and just being on the storm board appointed by council, I think some context around that and is the thinking of the ask for the junior storm program is because in some ways it's sort of a gift in kind for the city. It's pay the city rental fees for the ice, get that money back. It's money in, money out, but it is more of a gift in kind ask than an actual cash ask in many ways. And I think the intention with the organization is more, it's not so much about supporting the junior storm program, it's about supporting the actual storm program, which does have significant spectator participation, does bring some economic development to the city in terms of buses, teams coming, spending money in hotels, spending money in restaurants. So really it's about, the ask is more about supporting the team as a whole, but this was seen as a place to ask because it's more a gift in kind in some ways ask than a straight, hey, just give us cash ask. So let's say I'm looking forward to debate on it. I'm not sure where I'll land on it, but just to give context of why this ask came forward from that board.
Ms. Bieberdorf, with the gift in kind not being on this chart, was there any conversation around recognition for that with council and publicly? Some of the gift in kind is significant, and so and gift in kind only continues to increase as the cost of operating our facilities only continue to increase. So I would say that many organizations are getting more than a 2% increase based on us approving their gift in kind. And so where was that evaluation?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So the gift in kind is not included in the approval of the overall community group funding envelope. As we've been tracking and collecting all the information, now we have a better idea of what that number is. So now I think we can go back and work on getting adequate recognition for the gift in kind.
Yeah, I think recognition is one part of it. I think there's reality in regards to cash contributions as well. So, yeah, I think we've asked for this to be part of a conversation for a while, and I think it's fair evaluation when council is making operating decisions that gift in kind be part of that conversation, as those are operating costs, not only to the organization, but to us as well. So just a comment. All right. Anyone else with questions? Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. So when I look at, again, contractual, I think I just answered it myself. Contractual agreements, there is no 2% increase, although at the top of the page it says there is, but because it's a contract, it's locked in. So I answered my own question. Thank you.
Thanks for walking us through that. All right. See, anyone else with questions from any of the documents in your package here today? Seeing none, Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'd like to move council approve the 2026 operational funding as presented on table 1, option 1. But I'd like to hear from other councillors about the 2%, and I'm looking for... No?
So your motion is option 1?
Yep. I'll just do it. If I get voted down, fine.
Okay. So an opportunity for discussion and debate on the motion as presented to approve the 2026 operational funding table 1 as presented. Recognizing Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I personally prefer option 2 and the 2% increase. As they'd mentioned, This accounts for about 1.56% of our annual budget. You look down this list of organizations and the impact that they have in our community, we're getting substantial value out of it for what the city receives. I know that a lot of these organizations are struggling just as anyone else is. 2% doesn't seem like a lot, but again, it just keeps up with inflation. And if we don't continue to increase them and we hold it year after year over 5 or 10 years, they really start to lose their viability. And so for me, the 2% keeps them moderately viable. It's not a huge increase, but again, for the value that we get out of this list of organizations to the community, it's an excellent investment at 1.56% of our budget. Thanks.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I too cannot support Councillor O'Connor's motion. I was hoping for the 2% increase across the board, and a big reason for that, looking at the small stream funding, for me, we work with Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance as part of our external groups. They're the only environmental group that we actually fund out of all environmental groups in the Peace region, and to cut their funding significantly. It's not going to beat us up too bad, but we're entering into a year where we're looking at the State of the Watershed report, which is once every 10-year project. We're going to have to put in some extra costs into that. Water is life. We know it is also economy, according to the Water and the Circular Economy Division that the province has set up currently. So they see the value and the importance of water, not just as a social environmental aspect, but also as an economic driver. As far as the other groups, though, they asked for a good chunk of money, and our administration has done a great job in paring it down. For us, though, this 2%, it barely scratches the surface on inflation, which will be helpful for them to pay off their bills. I know their power bills are going up, their lighting bills, water. I don't know if we've raised the rent on them yet. I don't think so, but that's gift in kind usually. So for me, I don't see 2% as egregious. The bottom line is, including all the option 2 small stream, it's only $80,000 of a chunk into our budget. And what we find year over year is that our administration is incredible at doing their job, just like these service organizations are incredible at doing their job when we give them a little bit of money. But our administration will come back, and usually we find savings at the end of the year that we can put into reserves or other thing. That $80,000 to me is an investment in the community and in the viability of these not-for-profit organizations that do so much in our community that it seems like we're skimping on them when we really don't have to. So I won't support this motion, and I hope that an option 2 will come forward.
Councillor Blackmore.
I would move to amend Councillor O'Connor's motion from option 1 to option 2.
Okay.
And I would support that.
Well, she's actually has an amendment, so we'll discuss and debate.
Okay.
Thanks for your comments, though. Any discussion on your amendment?
I clearly agree with Councillor Thiessen and Councillor Berg. And to me, the easiest and quickest way to move this forward is with an amending motion.
Okay. So I have recognized Councillor O'Toole, you're still in the queue. I will come back to you, but right now is an opportunity for discussion and debate on the amendment. Councillor O'Toole on the amendment, or would you like me to come back to you later?
I'll support the amendment.
Okay. Councillor Bressie, discussion or debate?
Great. Yeah, I definitely support this. Every year we acknowledge that there's rising costs on inflation in our own budget, and we recognize that that means that we need to take in more money, or else we need to decrease services. And I think it's the exact same on our nonprofits. I think that they see costs escalating every year. If they can't get their funding increase to keep up with inflation, at least they need to do less. And right now, we have a lot of residents in our community who are struggling. And I know some would say, hey, that means the city needs to spend less money, and I respect that. But at the same time, I'd say that our residents who are struggling, they need these services more than anybody else in the community. If you can't get out of town because you can't afford a vacation or you can't even afford a road trip to Edmonton, then you really need the cultural services that are going on. If you're a family that's an economic crisis, having an affordable summer camp to send your kids to is critical. If you're a senior really struggling then having cultural events that you can engage in, having archives that are here that can help you preserve your history so that you can take pride in your history, et cetera, are so important. So I really think that these groups are important when people are struggling, and therefore we need to keep our costs up with inflation or giving up with inflation, so at least they can keep on doing what they're doing and not have to do less next year.
All right. Any further discussion or debate on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question.
Rusty in favor.
Councillor Platt votes in favor. Seeing that carries unanimously. So now discussion or debate on the amended motion. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. All right, Councillor O'Connor, did you want to continue?
Unless somebody wants to add 2% to everything. Anyway, I'll
make your motion as you.
Yeah, we'll go. Okay. I'll move that council approve the 2026 community group funding, option 1, operating grant allocations as presented in attachment 1.
Okay, so that motion is in order. That's your intent. All right. Councillor Blackmore.
In that case, I'm going to proceed again to make an amending motion to delete option 1 and replace it with option 2. I don't think I need to really speak to this because I feel that Councillor Bressi said it best. We are committed to our community, and these groups are very supportive of our community, so please support an amending motion.
All right, so Councillor Blackmore's amendment is in order. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question.
In favor.
And that carries unanimously. All right. I'm going to go to Councillor Blackmore now for the next motion. Pardon me? Oh, sorry, my apologies. We're voting on the main motion as amended. And that carries unanimously. Now I'll go to item number 3, Councillor Blackmore.
I move that Council defer the 2026 capital funding requests to the 2026 budget deliberations as presented in attachment 2. And in speaking to this, I believe it's important that we allow a new elected council that will be elected next October to be in control of their own budget. And so I believe it's appropriate to move this to those budget deliberations.
That motion is in order. Opportunity for discussion or debate on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to committee business. Item number 8 on today's agenda, starting with 8.1, the Investment Strategy Committee meeting held on June 10th. And I'll look to Councillor O'Connor for introduction.
I'd like to move that council adopt the minutes of the Investment and Strategy Committee meeting held June 10th as presented.
Thanks for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no discussion or debate, I'll call the question. And that's carried unanimously. Councillor O'Connor, a couple items of business today.
Yes, I'd like to move that council receive this report for information on our strategic planning.
All right, so a motion is to approve the update of the 2025 Q1 strategic priorities as received for information. Seeing no one in the queue, call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, there's I don't see details on the Grande Prairie storm. Is somebody going to
Ms. Whiteway, would you be able to speak to that, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So administration has taken some time to just gather information and do some research with regards to the storm delegation last week. So the request of the delegation was for ice rentals paid to the city for Junior Storm to be refunded and applied against their outstanding loan balance with the city. So administration did double check the amount of revenue collected over the last number of months. So we looked back to September 1st of 2024 through till June 30th, 2025. And the total amount of revenue charged before GST was $30,273.74. I will note as well that July and August of 2024 were previously given free of charge to the storm, so there was no revenue collected during those 2 months for ICE. In addition, there is some steps that would need to be taken with regards to the loan outstanding. So as council's well aware, that loan is established by bylaw, and by making changes to the payment amount and principal of this nature, we would require to go back out to advertise the proposed changes if council were to approve. So just a few extra steps that would need to happen. Now, the current principal balance outstanding of the loan is $158,794.31. Contractually, their quarterly payments are to commence again July 31st, 2026, and those payments are currently set at $12,1266.99 each quarter. Now, if we were to reduce the principal balance by the $30,000 as requested by the storm, that would result in an updated principal balance at only $128,520. The storm has requested that not change the length of their loan. They would like their quarterly payments to be decreased accordingly and still maintain the same length as originally, as is in the bylaw now. So a few things. So the total amount of revenue to date collected, that's just over $30,000. The request was to apply it against the principal balance. That would reduce it down to around $128,000 outstanding. They would still maintain to restart payments July 31st of 2026. However, they've asked that those payments drop to $9,920 a quarter rather than the $12,000 in the bylaw. So if council were to approve this request, a few other steps would need to be taken to modify that bylaw and have the appropriate advertising and petition period as required under the MGA. And that does conclude my update. Mayor Clayton, thank you.
Thanks for that, Ms. Whiteway. Recognizing Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So Chief Whiteway, are you aware, have we done this type of arrangement before with the storm or any other groups?
Thank you through the mayor. In my history, no. We have deferred payments on this one a few times along the way. I believe I may have, and I can't remember the name of the organization, but we may have had one or two or small little, down to their last few thousand, they were written off. But I've never had this request, nor have I done this before.
Okay, so if we approve this, then we are kind of setting ourselves some precedents?
Ms. Whiteway.
It would be something we've not done before, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. So the $30,273 was revenue from ice rentals this year, or was there camp from last year that now we're not charging and moving forward?
Ms. Whiteway.
Okay. So the $30,000 is billed and paid to date. So going forward, I would be above and beyond the 30,000. I looked at, well, the request was literally, could we reallocate our rental that we paid to our loan? So I would have to take cash paid and deposit in the bank to put it against the loan. I did not analyze what we thought they might have coming in over the next few months.
Okay. So, but the decision we just made with community group funding in essence should help their cash flow by a fair amount moving forward.
Ms. Waitway.
Thank you, through the mayor. Correct, remembering that only comes to them in the new year, 26. So would not benefit them in their current for the next 6 months.
And can you just remind me what the original loan amount was and when we started this? I feel like this was last term, but when did we start the loan and how much was it?
Ms. Waitway.
Certainly, just bear with me one moment. I've got that. So the original opening balance was 200,000, lent in October of 2019.
So I'm just curious, since 2019, I know we've deferred it a few times to help the storm through COVID and odds and ends, but have we have a cost of business on our capital. Is there any interest that's been adding on to this, or is this just kind of, they've made payments and it's just stopped and we're just kind of eating the interest to this point for all the deferrals?
Ms. Waitway.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Correct, that was explicitly the request of council not to charge more interest on this loan.
Okay, so we have deferred all interest from there. We've only received $42,000 in about 6 years on the current loan.
Through the mayor. So, there'll be no change in that sense. So regardless of the deferrals, we held it the same. We kept the interest rate to be more in line with what we would lose on not investing ourselves, $200,000, as well as the additional administrative tasks that come along with administering these types of things. So that was how we had determined what an equitable interest rate would be. And to date, we would have collected, sorry, I'll just find that number. I don't have that one. How much interest we've had to date, sorry, but I could get that if council is interested.
That's fine. Thank you. Gives me enough history.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I can see how this would benefit the storm, but I don't see how it would be at all to the city's advantage. Is there any advantages to us that I'm missing?
Waitway.
I myself have not identified any advantages for the city. No.
I feel like we're discussing a small group of taxpayers compared to a whole large group of city taxpayers, and I personally am not comfortable moving forward with this.
So, thanks for your opinion. Anyone else? So then the update's been provided. I'll suggest we continue on. Councillor O'Connor, meeting highlights.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton.
Sorry, before I do that, is there anyone that has any interest in any business arising? And seeing no one, now Councillor O'Connor, please continue.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Some great news. Forbes Homestead, Grande Prairie's oldest log home and the first hospital, open for the season tomorrow. Probably it was this last 2 weeks ago. So anyway, they start tea in July, and it's always a great thing to go to. And West Grande Prairie administration attended Salt Media's Indigenous Business Mixer, an event aimed at strengthening relationships and fostering collaboration among Indigenous businesses. The city hosted, as well, an industry mixer focused on tourism and hospitality sector, which welcomed over 70 local operators and featured engaging conversation and strong networking opportunities. We met with Administration met with Ovintiv to share collaborative updates and ideas, and Ovintiv continues to invest in the GP region, both operationally and as a community partner. And the last one in legislative and executive services, the city is offering 2 information sessions at the Grande Prairie Museum for prospective candidates looking to run in the upcoming municipal election, June 24th at 6 p.m., focused on election legislation, city operation and structure and time commitment for councillors, and on August 20 at 6 p.m. And that's my highlights, Madam Mayor.
Thanks for that, Councillor O'Connor. Moving on to item 8.2, the Operational Services Committee meeting also held on June 10th, and I would look to Councillor Plott for introduction.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would just move that Council adopt the minutes of the Operational Services Committee meeting held June 10 as presented.
Thanks for that, Councillor Plott. That motion is in order. Seeing no one else in the queue, call the question. Please vote.
Pressy in favor.
Plott in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Councillor Plott, you had one item of business today.
Yeah, Mayor Clayton, we had a report brought to us about bylaw, sorry, my e-scribe is froze on me here, about bylaw C4 1483, and basically it's more of a housekeeping bylaw. In quarter 4 of 2020, we had some amendments through other policies that have had to be changed, and I think this is just basically some housekeeping work to align all our policies again. So I would make a motion that Council give first reading to bylaw C 1483, being the Cemeteries bylaw.
Thanks for that. That motion is in order. Opportunity for questions. Sorry, this is first reading, so there will be no discussion or debate. Call the question on first reading.
Councillor Plott in favor.
Press. Oh.
And that carries unanimously. Councillor Plott.
I would make a motion Council give second reading to bylaw C 1483.
Right, that motion is in order. Opportunity for questions for administration. Discussion or debate. Seeing none, call the question on second reading. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd move that Council have third reading of bylaw C 1483 at this meeting.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order, and in order for us to have third reading here tonight, this must pass unanimously. Call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council give third reading to bylaw C 1483, being the Cemeteries bylaw.
Thank you for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question on third reading. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Plott, a couple of other items of...
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Again, on the same thing of housekeeping around this area, I would move that Council approve policy 624, being the cemetery policy as presented.
Thank you for that. Seeing no one in the queue, but discussion or debate, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. And one last item of business, Councillor Plott.
Yeah, again, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd move that Council approve amendments to policy 608, being the memorial tree and bench policy as presented.
Thank you for that. Motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with discussion, debate, questions for administration, I will call the question. And that carries unanimously. Any other highlights for your meetings, Councillor Plott?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. It was mostly business arising, and then we also had a service area update from Chief Glavin. So I'll give you some highlights from that one. Under engineering and transportation services, dust suppression application has started and are currently underway on all urban roads. The following have been posted on RFT for accessible playground site, the Jumpstart Project in Lions Park, and RFT for the minor surface resurfacing program, many local roads throughout the city, and an RFP for 132nd Ave to 160 twinning preliminary design and identifying land requirements have closed. Reclamation of 84th Ave from west of Bear Creek to 108th Street have been happening, an overlay of 102nd Street from 104th Ave to 116th Ave, and bell replacements for reconstruction of 97th Ave between 108th Street and 112th Street. Under transit services, the city operated shuttle buses to the Stompade May 29th through June 1st. There was a total of 243 riders, which is similar to last year, but much lower than the pre-COVID years. And that's my report. Thank you, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for that, Councillor Platt. Moving on to item, sorry, my apologies, Councillor Blackmore.
I'm never sure whether I should be asking this question of operations or protective services, but across the street from the comp, we have a couple of log buildings, which I don't remember the name of, and I'm wondering what use we have for them these days and how we are managing them, because I do believe they're part of the park system.
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I assume we're talking about the log structures, I think you said? Yeah. So right now there is a little bit of office space that's not used and out of date. And then there are washrooms. We have had substantial challenges with the washrooms being vandalized over the years, and are considering what options we have for them. So right now they, in theory, are used for washrooms. Right, I think they may be closed currently for some potential repairs, but we're looking at whether or not they should be repaired, and we just direct people to Center 2000 from that area. But currently under evaluation.
We used to rent them out to people for birthday parties, etc. So you're leading me to understand that's not happening now, either because there's no one lining up to rent them or because they need repair.
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. With regard to the washrooms, I'm certain that we're having issues. I'm not certain on the other components of the cabin and whether or not they're rentable assets or not. I'd have to discuss that internally.
If you could follow up even with an email, that would be fine, I think. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for those questions. Moving on to item 8.3, the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held on June 10th, recognizing Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council approve the minutes of the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, June 10th, as presented.
That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue with discussion or debate, call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. A couple of items of business today, Councillor Thiessen.
100%, Mayor Clayton. First item of business coming up is Hansen Lincoln Field naming rights renewal. And to that, I would move that Council approve the extension of the naming rights for the CKC turf field located at 10511 68th Avenue to Hansen Lincoln for an additional 5-year term, with the terms and conditions outlined in this report. Just speaking to this, Hansen Lincoln has proposed a lighting project for the west side of the grandstands at the Hansen Lincoln Field at the CKC with an estimated investment of $15,000 to $20,000. They have committed to fully funding the project and extending their naming rights agreement for an additional 5 years. This lighting solution will not only improve the visibility and safety of the area, it will also feature color-changing capabilities for celebratory displays, like the next time our football team wins the championship here in Alberta, as an example. So for those reasons here, I look forward to any discussion that may happen, and I encourage Council to support this motion.
Thank you for that introduction, Councillor Thiessen. Open it up for questions for administration or discussion or debate on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Second item of business is Policy 364, Family and Community Support Services, aka FCSS funding. And to that, I would move that Council approve Policy 364 as presented. Now, the reason for this policy coming forward is historically Council has held FCSS funding groups underneath our community group funding. But since February, we approved amendments to Policy 315 and removed the FCSS. So we didn't have a standing FCSS funding policy, and that's part of what this will do. It will not only establish a clear and transparent framework for how the city administers its partnerships with the Government of Alberta to deliver preventive social services within the community, it is also aligned with provincial legislation and FCSS accountability frameworks. So it will ensure consistent evidence-based funding and strengthen public trust. And adopting this policy will enable the city to continue supporting impactful community-driven programs that enhance the well-being of residents across Grande Prairie and the Peace region. And I encourage everyone to support this, as the policy, as we reviewed over committee, is pretty great. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Recognizing Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Appreciate the report and the details in here. And I just want to confirm, if I'm understanding this correctly, that so I believe the FCSS was set up on an 80 sort of 20 model was what we were trying to achieve. And we're on a, if I'm reading this report, we're on a 56 provincial and 39% municipal. Is that correct, Ben?
Chief Lemieux?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So yes, that's correct. The policy does say minimum 20%, so it doesn't set the approval by council, but council could approve more than the 20%. So we're currently at the numbers that you quoted.
Yeah, no, and I think we've been quite a bit higher than 20% for quite some time. I'm just wondering if administration's done a swath of other mid-sized cities just to see. I'm pretty confident this is a trend happening in other mid-sized cities, but I'm just wondering if we're seeing this number creeping to where we may be 50-50 in no time the way we're heading here. So I'm just wondering if we've looked at other municipalities if they're on the same path.
Chief Lemieux?
So thank you for the question, and thank you, Madam Mayor. So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I can tell you that most municipalities are above the 20%. Certainly, if council wanted a detailed breakdown, we could bring that back.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I don't have numbers for you, but I can tell you that I regularly visit other councils of mid-sized cities and smaller too, and this is a question I routinely ask, and I've yet to hear a council tell me, oh yeah, we're only at the 20%, except for in small municipalities. Every single mid-sized city that I've asked that question has told me they're significantly above the 20%.
Councillor Plott.
So hearing that, I'm just wondering if we should be making a motion to ask administration to look at that. And I say this more as we're constantly asking the province to stop downloading on us, and yet we just keep accepting it. But I wonder if they realize just how big this gap's getting to be for us. I'm not sure if maybe Councillor Bressie can say anything to Munis, and if that's a worthwhile document. I don't want to waste a bunch of administration's time, but we talk about these downloads lots, but I just wonder if the provincial government fully understands just how big these numbers have got for some municipalities. So if there's information out there that we can get without a bunch of work for admin, happy not to make a motion, but if there is something that we think that we could get, I personally would like to see that information just to see how this is happening and trending with other cities in the province.
Yeah, I would say that happy to take that motion. Following approving this policy, I'll come back to you. Okay. But sorry, Mr. Burke, did you have something else to add?
Just something to consider as a councillor considering whether to put a motion forward is whether that's information they'd like now, or that's something they'd like part of budget deliberations and there. So just to think through that as if you're going to bring a motion forward.
Okay. I'll go back to, sorry, Councillor Thiessen. But if it's business, I'll come back to you.
No business. Yeah, we got the motion on the table. That's all good. One area that we might be able to push this towards is I see Councillor Bressie across the table, and he works very closely with Alberta Munis, as we all know, and they're a big advocacy group for us as well. This might be something that we might want to focus into our advocacy priorities, or at least put on the back burner for the next council to consider the FCSS downloads and the flatlining of the numbers from the provincial end. I don't know if you'd include that in your motion or if administration would check that, but it seems like you're right. We've consistently been above that 40% threshold, that 40-60. Yeah, how do we get the province to pay their fair share? Well, we just got to advocate.
Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, thank you. Just some context on that. This is a significant advocacy priority for most municipalities, I'd say, and as such, it is an advocacy priority for Alberta municipalities right now. We've been attending all the regional FCSS AA meetings to talk about how can Alberta municipalities do joint advocacy with the association that's responsible for family community support services. It's also, we've met with the minister a few times. I was personally in one of those meetings with the minister, and the minister is definitely very aware of where the gap is. still has to get it through Treasury if he's going to ask for increases, but also there are some concerns with FCSS in terms of if you fund the program, if you increase funding, a lot of the money goes towards the big cities, which also do get significant one-time funding as well for a number of initiatives. And so the ministers shared those concerns of FCSS might not be the best way to fund, at least under the current funding allocation. So if we do want to do advocacy on this, I'm kind of skeptical that we should put our weight into it, because I think we should focus our advocacy weight on where other municipalities aren't necessarily advocating for. But also, if we do want to do advocacy on this, I'd suggest that we talk about preventative services overall and say to the government, hey, you're not advocating preventative services in our community to an appropriate degree, fund more prevention. I think we should talk more about that, what we needed to do, than how we needed to do, which is funding FCSS. And I think there's a slight nuance there that I think is important if we're going to do advocacy on it. But personally, I don't know if we should be doing advocacy on it because it is being strongly done elsewhere.
Councillor Blackmore.
I'm going to speak entirely as a taxpayer at this point in time. I recognize that the province has multiple levels of revenue that we don't have. However, if I'm going to pay taxes into a program such as FCSS, I would rather do it at a municipal level where I know that the money I'm giving the city of Grande Prairie is going to support agencies that are providing care and support to people within our own community. If we ask the province to increase the amount of money they're putting into FCSS services, chances are good they're going to collect it through taxes. We're already collecting that through taxes, and I'm happier paying that money to our city administration because I know that it's going directly to programming in my own community. I know that if the province increases funding, collects it through taxes, that means that more of my taxes are going to Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, and I'm not happy with that. I would certainly prefer it to stay within my own community. And so I would actually not support lobbying or requesting AB Munis to act on our behalf to continue to push this forward. I actually think we have a good deal right now, and that's the way I would like to continue to see it grow.
All right, seeing no one else in the queue, I'm going to call the question on the motion. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. I'll look to my colleagues to see if there's any other business arising, recognizing Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I actually tend to agree with Councillor Blackmore on this, but having said that, I still would like to know as a city where we lie in this, where we stack up with other municipalities. So I'd make a motion that I bring back a report on what percentages other mid-sized cities are contributing to community support services versus receiving from FCSS. I'm not even saying I'm unhappy. That's my motion for alleged services. I'm not unhappy necessarily what we're paying, but I would like to know what other cities are doing. Are we substantially higher and we should be bragging about, well, the grid that we're doing in our community over and above other communities? Or are we just in line with other communities? I don't know if it needs to go anywhere other than that, but for me, I would like to kind of know, we're always hearing how our taxes are high. Well, maybe we're doing these things that we should be telling the community that we're doing better than other communities. So I'm hoping that report will show that. I feel like with that percentage, I don't think we're going to see a lot of cities under 20%. I think we're going to see them higher, but I'm curious to see if they'll be the same ratio that we are.
All right, so that is in the scribe. Councillor Plott, does it reflect what you were hoping?
Sorry, it does for me, and I just would ask administration if that gives them kind of the context of what I'm speaking of and not leading them on a goose chase here.
Okay, I'm getting a nod from Chief Lemieux. We're good with that. Discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen, any highlights from your meeting?
Well, yeah, I got a bunch of highlights here, Mayor Clayton. Starting out with mobile outreach, there were 29 new referrals received through mobile outreach, with 26 individuals actively engaged in casework by month's end. So, good news story there, trying to situate people in with their programs, services, and hopefully housing, and sometimes even getting them back to their home community. Under RCMP, on June 15th, just this past Saturday, was Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Actually, no, Sunday. That was yesterday, Father's Day. It was also Father's Day on that day. But throughout June, Corporal Uhl from the RCMP will be educating citizens on elder abuse, including the mistreatment, neglect, and exploitation of older adults. It's very timely as it's also Seniors Week. Recreation, we have a total of 252 passes that were sold through the Summer Blast Pass sales on the Here Comes Summer promotion. This is double what we sold last year, so it's definitely a great news story, and great to hear that all of our residents are excited about getting outside here this summer. In housing and community development, the Community Supports and Services Survey launched last week and will be open until July 4th for all residents 18 years and older. We invite everyone to participate that is above that age, and this survey will help the city and its partners decide which funding is needed and plan programs that reflect local priorities. Residents that complete the survey will have the opportunity to enter a prize draw, and usually they're pretty good prizes too. So if you're up for a survey and you want to tell us how we can better help and serve the community in housing, we are all ears. And of course, finally, as we all know, last week in the early morning hours, a fire broke out at Margaret Edson Manor. And Grande Prairie Fire Department, kudos to them. They arrived within minutes to find the structure fully engulfed. Despite the challenging conditions that were made worse by the high winds that were happening that morning, Grande Prairie Fire Department crews, along with EMS and RCMP, successfully evacuated all residents, including many with mobility challenges, and damage to the structure is significant, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation, as last was reported. We also activated GPREP for the wildfires that were happening out in Kelly Lake before the rains, and we activated them again on June 9th to assist with the evacuation of lodging of residents of Margaret Edson Manor. Also, a big shout out to GP Transit for helping to get everybody safely to the hospital and to all their other services, and to all our frontline first responders. It's a good news story. It's a horrible tragedy that happened there, but a good news story that nobody was left behind, nobody lost their life, and so kudos to our staff and the training that involved them in those successful outcomes, because without that type of collaboration between departments, we could have seen a lot worse outcomes. So currently, for anybody, I'll put it out there again, for anybody who's looking for Margaret Edson Manor for any types of services around finding housing or otherwise, your housing lead currently is Grand Spirit Foundation, and you can reach out to them online or through their phone number, which I just didn't put in my notes here today. I apologize. But Grand Spirit Foundation is leading the charge for everyone, and we have already situated several of the residents, but still more to find more permanent housing, which will be of a more temporary nature. That was all I have for the updates. Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Moving on to item 8.4, the Council Committee of the Whole meeting held on June 11th. And looking for somebody to take care of the business rising. Councillor Thiessen.
Aha, I beat Councillor O'Connor to the button there. I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Council Committee of the Whole meeting held June 11th as presented.
Thanks for that. That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue, call the question.
Trustee in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Moving on to another item of business, as a result of the Council Committee of the Whole meeting on June 11th, there is business arising in your package. As if you recall, administration presented an update on the new updated terms and conditions in regards to the stores agreement, and the motion is in your package, and I'll recognize Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd like to move Council approve the updated Standing Committee on Recreation and Education Services scores agreement in principle, and direct administration to execute the agreement containing terms and conditions satisfactory to the city manager and city solicitor.
Thanks for that. That motion is in order. Recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'll definitely be supporting this. I'm really proud of the scores agreement and the collaboration that it shows between different organizations in our city. It's an awesome agreement. That being said, I'm going to vote for this today for sure, but just something I've mentioned, I think, to most of you, but I'd love to get on the public record, is I really think we should eventually have a conversation about, do we really expect only cost recovery when community groups are using school gyms and school libraries? I know that schools, they're facing more and more budget pressures to keep up with their students and to give their students kind of those little extras that make their schools welcoming, inclusive places, but also enhance educational opportunities. And our school administrators, I volunteer in both my kids' schools, and every year school administrators are more and more strained. And I know that sometimes these scores agreements, they're not a lot for school principals and administrators to deal with, but they are just a little bit extra for them to deal with. And personally, when my kid's doing a soccer practice in a school gym, I'd be really happy for the teams pay an extra $20, so my family pay an extra 50 cents a buck, so that school can have a little bit of extra money to do extra things for their students. So it helps students there, but also make it worth principals and administrators' time to be so welcoming to our community and them. So I don't think that should stand in the way of us signing this agreement moving forward, but it is something I'd love to have conversation with. Do we really expect these schools to only operate on cost recovery, or would we be okay if they have a bit of money? So conversation I just want to keep on putting in ears, and maybe we'll get to have it someday.
All right. I appreciate your comments. Recognizing Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'm a little puzzled. If we approve this agreement, are we not approving the costing agreement as well? And so if you want to look at that, would you not want to look at it before the agreement is ratified or signed?
Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, and just speak that. I also don't want to get in the way of this agreement getting signed. I know there's some administrative issues, and if I was saying, hey, we need to get more money from them, then yeah, sure, that's something that you'd have to figure out before you sign this agreement. If we want to have a conversation about, hey, we would like you to get more money from us, I don't think that would be difficult for us to do, but I know that there's just some organizational stuff that needs to happen at scores, and I think it gets complicated when you talk about the county and you talk about the multiple school boards, how you do that. I just think that's complicated work and conversations that I don't know if I want to eat up administrative capacity at this time. If I'm the only councillor that this is kind of their hobby horse, I'd be excited if this was all of council feeling, hey, very strongly we should do this. Great. If it's just me feeling we should do this, I don't know if I just want to try to eat up the administrative time at this point doing it, because we're asking a lot from those people. So those are some musings on why I'm not making a motion or doing something. I've mentioned this. I haven't heard a lot of excitement or people saying, hey, this is something we really want to eat up administrative time at this point to do it.
Yeah, I could probably in the long run be convinced. So it's a discussion. I'm looking at the city managers. It's a discussion we want to have before or after this agreement is passed.
Councillor, or rather, Mr. Burke.
If the intent is to have change effective sooner, then we should hold and at least have the discussion with the working group. I haven't. I don't know the views of the working group on this. I don't think there's any impact though for us to hold this for a period, and us at least to go have that discussion if that was council's will. We could have the discussion with the working group if there was appetite for maybe the schools to ask for that, and if they did, we could have that discussion. So there's no urgency to sign this today, I guess, if that's the question.
Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm just curious again, I'm sorry, there's lots of numbers, but how many hours do we utilize through the scores agreement every year, like through the city? How many hours do we book annually?
Ms. Bieberdorf?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. It's about 5,500 hours of school use in city facilities and roughly the same for community use of school gyms.
Okay, so hearing that, I probably had more of an appetite to do something, but hearing that, if we're talking about bumping it $2 and $10,000 between 30 schools, I don't know if $300 a school is really moving the needle on them. So unless you're going to do a fairly substantial bump to the rate per hour, I don't know if it's going to really move the needle as much as showing up and giving the odd janitor a coffee, to be honest. I just don't. If we're 5,500 hours a year, we'd have to, in my opinion, a pretty substantial bump to actually see any benefit when you start splitting it over the amount of schools we're dealing with.
Any further comments? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the motion in your e-scribe.
Resi in favor.
And that carries unanimously. Moving on to an item of unfinished business, the bylaw C-1478 being a borrowing bylaw. This is in your package. First reading was given, so an opportunity on second reading now. I'll recognize Councillor Berg, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions for administration or discussion and debate.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So I'd like to move council give second reading to bylaw C-1478 being a borrowing bylaw. And just speaking to this is the Montrose Cultural Centre. There's been some building deficiencies found in it. These are urgently needed. Some of it includes some humidity and environmental issues, and in the parkade. So they do need to be rectified. It's not an if. We can't put it off any longer. But what it also does is it maintains the Category A status for the Art Gallery of Grande Prairie, which as a Category A is the top rating that any museum in Canada can get, which means you can host any level of art show internationally, providing you have the right security. But the building itself can actually have it for humidity and temperature. So knowing that this is much needed, and a little known trivia fact that our Art Gallery of Grande Prairie is Alberta's second largest public art gallery, only behind the Art Gallery of Alberta. It's bigger than any art gallery, dedicated art gallery, that even Calgary has until they get their multi-million-dollar Glenbow completed. So then we'll drop to 3, but for the past decade or so, we've had a bigger art gallery than even Calgary has had. So it is a pride piece for us when visitors come to the city that we have a Class A gallery that could compete with anything across Canada. So this borrowing bylaw will fix the building envelope and maintain its Category A status.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. My question is to Ms. Whiteway, and in the back, almost the last paragraph, it says not to exceed 10%. Can you tell me what the percentage that we can get from, I'm sure, whatever association we borrow money from? What's the maximum? 10% seems a lot to me.
Ms. Whiteway?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So I can tell you we will not borrow at 10%. I can't confirm with you rates, although we're always going to multiple lenders to ensure we get the best rates. So I don't have quotes on rates today, but we will not be borrowing at 10%. The MGA requires councils to put a maximum on what they would allow, and that's why that's there. But we've been quoted less than that over the last few months on other debts.
Yeah. And one more. Just curious then, Ms. Whiteway, is what would we be able to pay this out sooner, or is it has to be 25 years in a fixed term?
Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you for the question through the mayor. Right now, I have not, because the borrowing bylaw has not been completed, I've not negotiated a loan agreement. Now, our other agreements allow certain prepayments at certain times with certain qualifications, so there is opportunity. The recommendation is that there's a lot of life left in this building, and at this point, administration recommends that 25-year period line up with sort of what this project will, the likelihood of it will last longer than that. So that was sort of the thought behind the 25-year period.
Okay, thank you very much. I had one more if nobody else.
I have someone else, thanks. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Always appreciate Councillor Berg's facts, and he's always full of a lot of little trivia questions or ideas. I'm just curious on we also have a grant that we're trying to apply for this currently right now from I can't remember which stream it was. So if that were to come to fruition, we just wouldn't take the loan on that, or do we know when that grant's going to close? It was in one of our packages a couple, 3 weeks ago, I believe.
Ms. Whiteway?
Thank you. I can tell you if we were to be successful in a grant application and not needing to borrow the full amount, that's exactly what administration would look at doing. So if that was to be successful, there's the opportunity to not have to borrow the full amount.
Okay, no, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'm going to call the question on second reading. Carries unanimously. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like to move council give third reading to Bylaw C-1478, being a borrowing bylaw.
For that motion is in order. Opportunity for discussion or debate. Calling the question on third reading. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. There are no items of correspondence today, and there was one delegation business opportunity for council to ask administration some questions. I had one in particular. I wondered, Chief Glavin maybe, or Mr. Burke, if you could tell me some past historical funding streams that the Veterans Memorial Garden has received from the city of Grande Prairie. Mr. Burke.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. For 2025, they received $1,500 under the micro grant funding stream for the Soldiers of Suicide event scheduled for August. So I'm just rereading my notes here. They also had applied for some festival funding for $3,500, but the project that they put forward was not deemed eligible for funding at this time for that. And they also did not receive microgrant funding for the Liberation of the Netherlands event that's upcoming here in the next few weeks, as they had received funding under the microgrant funding stream already.
All right. Thanks for that. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I guess my question is how onerous would it be to top up their $1,000 tank with some of our water trucks that go around? And I know we've had a lot of rain this past week, and I know we're getting more rain later this week. So I kind of sit back and think it wouldn't be every week or every other week, but should they request 3 or 4 times a year, would that be a challenge for the city?
And Chief Glavin on that also, do we know the size of the tank? Can we confirm it's actually $1,000 to fill it up?
1,000 gallons.
1,000 gallons, rather, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'm not aware of the size of the tank. And with regard to how onerous it is, if it's just filling up infrequently, it's probably not significantly onerous for us to do. However, we would want direction from council to do that, as this is on private property and wouldn't be part of normal operations for us to supply water.
Good. Okay, yeah, I was just out there for museum days, and they do have a beautiful new garden there, and they continue to plant new plants. So I'd like to support them somehow. I'm just not sure exactly how. So just looking for more conversation and information.
Councillor Blackmore.
I would like Chief Glavin to tell me when we fill our water tanker truck and take it around to water trees, where that water comes from. Is it coming out of the tap, or are we using the water storage system underneath the spray parks, or where's the water coming from?
Chief Glavin.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. A combination of things. We do use some potable water. We also use water from storm ponds occasion. However, we have a license to have certain requirements on when and how much we can take.
And do we use the water that comes out of the storm, out of the spray parks anymore? We used to.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'll have to confirm if we're still using that or if that's a current practice.
And I'm asking these questions because I'm thinking that, yes, it's easy for us to swing by there occasionally and fill their tank, but if we're paying for the water that goes into their tank, it's not any different than if they were paying for the water, in my opinion. So I think it depends on the source of the water and the cost of the water to us. I know that our trucks are there regularly as part of the park service. Yeah, I would just want to know what the cost is for the water that we're using already. And I know that from watering my own lawn from municipal services, the cost really, truly isn't that great.
And so I'm just going to jump in here before I go to Councillor Bressley quick. On that same vein, Chief Glevin, saying that operationally it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I'm curious, knowing that we have a fair amount of new trees from last year to water. We have significant intended new trees to be planted this fall. I understand maybe we might be down a water truck. Is this actually something that's doable, or would it be something that, depending on the cost, if you were to come back to committee, maybe it's external, to a contractor to fill it up? I'm just curious your high-level thoughts.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yes, we are down a water truck that is being repaired. We'll have that back at some point, likely in the next month. We're certainly not looking for things to do for our watering program. We have a substantial amount, and we'll be asking for a new water truck at Capital this fall. So we do have a very active watering program currently.
Councillor Bressley.
Great, thank you. Are there any examples in town of where we help an organization that's not the city maintain public space?
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. It's possible. I just off the top of my head, nothing's coming to me.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you.
I think the closest example is in the downtown, where the Downtown Association buys the baskets and we maintain through watering. That's probably the closest example. I'd say in this case, just knowing the limitations we have, us exploring what an external contractor would be would probably be likely be a good recommendation from us. In that, I'm also appreciating that it's a bit dry right now. Could get drier if the request is for 1 cube a week now. Where does that end? And giving a financial contribution would give us some more certainty in our capacity to help.
Yeah, and I know for me, I get why they're asking it. And if we operate our own water department and we could just waive the bill, then absolutely, I think this would be something I'd be incredibly sympathetic to. But there's some benefits being Aquatera, and there's also some limitations to it. And to be blunt, I wouldn't be happy if the county started making Aquatera waive the bills on some projects in the county. So I don't think it's reasonable for us to lean on Aquatera to waive the bill here. And then that really does come to just cash sponsorship. And when it comes to cash sponsorship, we've got a process that we just went through to consider it. So just given the limitations of the way we do water, I'm sympathetic to the request, but I just don't think there's a practical fair way for us to do this.
All right, I see no one else in the queue. So I'm happy just to take a motion to receive this delegation's presentation for information. Councillor Bressley.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that.
Okay. Looking for discussion or debate on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. So there are no notices of motion. We're now on a recess. We'll see you back here. Oh, my apologies. I thought we were coming back. We are going to now go to council member roundtable, and I'll start with Councillor Blackmore.
Well, thank you, Mayor Clayton. 2 weeks ago, I missed this council meeting because Councillor O'Connor and I were trying to get back from Ottawa, and another long and not really that successful day of travel. FCM was an interesting event, though, and I did enjoy that. I also attended the InvestGP Mixer for Hospitality and Tourism. It was very well attended by the hospitality and tourism people in town. You always wonder when you have when you're hosting these mixers, if anyone's going to show up. And sometimes it's a lot of people and sometimes not so many. So it was good to see a lot of our tourism people. I also attended the Work Northwest Talent Insight, where Work Northwest showed the work that they've been doing on the website, that anyone who's looking for employers, looking for employees, or looking for work should probably have a look at, as it looks like a great website. I brought greetings on behalf of the mayor to the Catholic Women's League annual regional meeting, which is the region of Mackenzie. They spent a weekend discussing how they can better support their communities and what they what is new and interesting in their organization. I was pleased to attend the 7/70 Awards of Distinction and congratulate all of the winners of those awards, ranging in age from 70 to, I think, 95. And so certainly those are people who've dedicated their life to making our lives in Grande Prairie better. I was pleased to attend the Staff Appreciation Barbecue, and after I spent an hour or so handing out smoky buns, I then sat with the fire department while I had my own lunch, and we talked about their efforts at Margaret Edgson Manor and the fact that they are busier now than they are in a normal season, and they're quite frankly tired. So if you see a fireman, give them a pat on the back and tell them that we know they're tired, but we know they're going to keep on doing a great job. I attended a couple of the budget stakeholder sessions as well, and a stakeholder meeting with Ovintiv. And I was sad to miss Lemonade Day on Saturday, and I hope some members of council went out in the pouring, driving rain to have lemonade with the boys and girls who do a great job of marketing the little businesses they establish for Lemonade Day. And that concludes my report.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackmore. Councillor Thiessen.
Whoa, I thought you were going to Councillor Bressie. He's sitting back in his chair all happy. I like it. He's smiling at me with that Bressie smile. It's a big one. Anyways, the last 2 weeks were quite busy. I will highlight a couple things that I did, and largely it was just a small contingent at council, although many of us were at some of the events there. I attended the Indigenous Cultural Celebration and Graduation at the Grande Prairie Composite High School with Councillor Berg. It was a really great celebration, recognizing and celebrating our Indigenous youth who were graduating out of high school and into the real world. That's what my parents used to say to me, into the real world. Well, it was a good time. They had many vendors there, and they said that this is something that they want to do year over year over year. So if you get a chance next year, council, by all means, step in. You don't have to be on council to go and cheer on these great young future leaders. Also took part in the Day of Friendship and got to finally, after 4 years, get my hands in orange paint and paint the crosswalk. Didn't work out the first 3 years, but this year worked out really good, and happy to do that. Great turnout, by the way. Many members of council there, but even many more members of the community. There must have been close to about 50 or 60 people there just to participate. So that was great seeing people from all ages do that. And then I took in the lunch and a tour of the Healing Garden at the Friendship Center afterwards. I also attended the 7/70 Awards. Just wanted to do another shout out here to our 7/70 winners: Yad Minhas, Margaret Bowes, Fletcher Boodle, Hansen, Lily Peters, Red Smith, Larry Fells, and the tearjerker of the night, Mr. Dave Bray. I know that I had waterfalls going down just because, he was very touched by the moment. And when you see a grown man get touched by the moment, as a grown man, you get touched by his moments too. And I was really happy to share some tears with him and many other members there. But as Councillor Blackmore said, these are the people who dedicated their lives to building this community. They're the pioneers in many different areas of Grande Prairie. From there, I went to a Friends of the Foundation meeting, planning and organizing several events, as well as how we're going to help the Margaret Edson Manor people. We discussed Grand Spirit Foundation's birthday celebration, which if you don't have it in your calendar yet, it is next Saturday, June 28th, down in Muskosipi Park from 11 till 3. I know the mayor will be there, I will be there, and I hope to see each and every one of you there, as well as many, many, many members from our community to celebrate the great success of the foundation over 65 years being a senior itself. I also attended many of the Engage GP stakeholder sessions, the staff appreciation barbecue, and this weekend I got to take in the GP Army Cadets number 2850 ceremony to see all these cadets win their awards. Some of them march off into retirement, and we were finished off with honoring for all in attendance to see our best marchers in Alberta, the marching squadron of 2850, and man, were they organized. It was nothing like the presidential parade. This is the military parade this weekend. Those kids know how to keep it in line and keep their steps in alignment. And so kudos to them, and best of luck in the future for those aging out. And that is my report. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Busy couple weeks. Got to go to a lot of these events. I won't highlight anything that's already been mentioned. But between all my city duties, I also got to put on my Alberta Municipalities hat and go to Southern Alberta and go on a member tour down there and visit a number of councils down there. It's always interesting to get as far away in the province as I can get while still staying in Alberta and hear what's going on. And it's remarkable how many things are different, but also always interesting to hear, it's remarkable how many things are exactly the same down there, but also interesting to hear what's different. So some things that I noticed were the same that I universally heard in every member visit was struggling by the province increasing education property taxes, although at our 9% we're quote-unquote lucky because in the Village of Barons they saw a 39% increase in how much their residents had to pay to the province in property taxes. Everybody agreed that having a railway go through your town really sucks, although I think CN might be a lot better to deal with than CP based on some of the stories I heard. And everybody's struggling with housing and really wanting to see enough housing in their community. Also, really surprising to me to visit tiny villages that are dealing with encampments. And I know that's been a challenge for us, but imagine how big a challenge that is when you've got one public works guy who's never seen a needle in his life, and you've got a bylaw enforcement officer that you share with 10 people, and you're lucky to see the Mounties show up in your village 3 to 4 times a year. Imagine how hard it would be to deal with encampments. So really interesting. And also, I happened to be there the day of the Premier's town hall on coal. Definitely heard some mixed opinions from municipalities on coal. Some were very for, some were very against, but it was very interesting to talk to them. Also heard lots of conversation on, not so much because it's the South, but because I was visiting smaller municipalities, on the police funding model and the province talking about what it's going to do, how much policing costs in the future is going to pass on to municipalities that get their policing through the provincial agreement with RCMP. Speaking of which, I also got to attend, not with my AUB Munis hat on, but with my city hat on as Deputy Mayor, the Northern Alberta elected leaders meeting in Beaver Lodge last Friday. Police funding was very much on the radar there. What's going on is, as we know, RCMP costs have gone up dramatically over the last 5 years. That's been passed on to those of us that have contracts directly with Public Safety Canada, but hasn't been passed on to smaller towns, smaller villages yet. And so if the cost increases are passed on, they're looking at a 57% increase to the amount of money they pay for RCMP every year, which of course we've already seen that. We've just seen it increase over the last 5 years instead of seeing it go up all at once. And I think there might be some advocacy that we as a city and we as cities collectively need to do on that. I'm curious if the province is going to actually pass those costs fully on to other municipalities or not. And if it doesn't, then I think we need to be strong in saying, well, hey, we're seeing police cost increases too. You better take care of us as well, even though it's been very generous to us as a city with our police transition funding. We're the only city that's received that. And it is going to be, I think, a divisive conversation in the province over the next year or two, who pays what for policing. So it's a conversation worth us being aware of. Northern Alberta elected leaders, we also got an update on the Northern Alberta Physician Training Program, which was great to hear. And I was really excited to hear an update from Northern Alberta Economic Development Council. And they're more active than they have been in a number of years. And so that was encouraging to hear. Also, with my deputy mayor hat on, I got sent by the mayor to be at an NWP convocation. That was the first time for me, so it was kind of cool to see. I got to join Councillor Palat to see the flag raised for Filipino Independence Day, and I got to eat way too big a meal that was way too spicy to eat, but holy smokes, was it a good meal, even if it was too big and too spicy. And then the last thing that I attend that I want to highlight is the Pride Society put on a documentary screening of the Delwyn Vrind story case. So it was a documentary looking at Delwyn Vrind, who took took gay rights all the way to the Supreme Court. He was fired just for being gay, and he was the first person ever to make a legal argument of, hey, you can't do that to me. And the Supreme Court recognized that you can't fire somebody just for being gay, and that enshrined gay rights, not just in Alberta, but across the country, and also in a number of Commonwealth countries too. It got read into courts in other Commonwealth countries too. So it was interesting hearing about these Albertans talking about their role expanding human rights across much of the globe, not just in our little province. And it was also interesting, but also sad to hear the panel after. There was a panel of the filmmaker as well as two local residents talking about treatment they're seeing of the LGBTQ community, and just seeing worried that their rights are going to be rolled back that they've won over the years, and also just talking about some mistreatment that that community is facing that in some ways is worse than they've ever seen it in our community, which was sad. And I don't think that's from the majority of our residents, but unfortunately there are a very small minority who are behaving very poorly to our LGBTQ community. It was sad to hear those stories, and I think there's work that we still need to do as a community on that.
Thanks for that, Councillor Bressie. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I'd like to give you my list of things to do this past couple of weeks. There was a lot of things going, and you got to pick and choose which ones because they overlapped a few of them. But I attended the Invest Grande Prairie Mixer on tourism, very well attended. St. Gerard School, we had 2 grade 6 classes in this room, and we spent part of the morning. I had Councillor Palat and Councillor Thiessen helping me, and Connor. Yeah. And Downtown Association new executive director was a meet and greet, and it was great to meet Highwell Williams, as he is now the new Grande Prairie Downtown Association executive director. We had an opportunity to go to the Northwest Polytech and talk to the people that are planning a draft review of the engagement opportunities, as well as the Smoky River draft plan. And that's on the other side of the river, but there was partners at this meeting. I think there was probably 40 people in that room. And so it was good discussion and still a lot of uncertainty. Working in Northwest Alberta Industry Talent Insight was another workshop. And the Day of Friendship, where we got to have our hands imprint. I was doing well until Councillor Thiessen walked by and bumped my glove against my hand, and even though I had gloves on, I had orange paint on my hands. So I just thought I would share that with you, so stay away from with Councillor Thiessen when you're removing paint from your painted gloves on your hands. The Grovedale Music Festival I attended. We have lots of family out there, so we went out there and met a lot of Grande Prairie residents out there as well. 7 over 70 awards. Once again, I knew a number of the people that got nominated and won. And the meeting with Ovinton, Canada, was a great meeting. They really like what we're doing in this city, and I think we really like what they're doing as well. Budget stakeholder sessions, I attended, I think 4 of them, and I had a one-on-one with the mayor. Special Olympics board meeting was held last week on the 11th, and the staff appreciation barbecue. I was the person that was assigned to do buns, but I got moved to a more important position, and that was handing out beverages. Council Committee of the Whole and the ribbon cutting for Mary Brown's. I have never seen so many people in that little building that I did that day. And they brought out free food for the people and thanked the community for their success. And I also attended the Northwestern Polytech convocation ceremony on Friday. I didn't know any of the people graduating, but it was an awesome ceremony with great speeches. And I'd like to thank that opportunity. And that is my report.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Many of the reports or items I attended have already been mentioned, so I'll just go over those quickly. Always liked the Cole St. Gerard school visits that I did with a few council colleagues. The Invest GP mixer was well attended with the hospitality and tourism. The meeting with Oventive. The staff barbecue was probably actually my highlight last 2 weeks. I always like seeing the different staff come from our parks department to some gentlemen wearing, some of our admin staff wearing suits. So it's nice seeing them all congregate sitting around and just realizing how much of our staff, although they sit with their groups, actually intermingle with other employees when they're sitting in the event. So I always find that event interesting. And other than that, it seemed like the last 2 weeks of golf, which is more golf than I normally do in the season. I did the Striving for Nursing Excellence 9-hole tournament. Really appreciated meeting a few ladies that were in public health and our emergency services department, and hearing some of their stories was actually nice. Just hearing even more about how we're doing some of the great things in our recruitment or attraction strategies, but still more work can be done on that. And so it was nice to hear some feedback from industry on that. Did the NWP golf tournament as well. Was a fun one. Also did the Sunrise Odyssey Golf Tournament last Friday, which was also fun, although it rained the entire time, and it was fun putting through water on greens by the end of the tournament, but it was a great cause. And then the Filipino flag raising as well. So those are the events I took in the last couple of weeks. Thanks.
I said Councillor Platt. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Attended the Grande Prairie Regional Tourism AGM, followed by the mixer, and it was great to see dignitaries involved in tourism from across the province. So it was a great event there. Had the Grande Prairie Public Library Board meeting where we discussed budget. I did attend 2 budget stakeholder sessions, one at the Teresa Sargent Hall and one down at the museum. Had a lot of fun at the city staff barbecue, giving out smokies, but working alongside the Special Olympic ambassadors was a lot of fun too. They always put a smile on my face, so it was great to see them there, and they're working hard. And then later on today at 6 o'clock, Councillor O'Connor and I are having our final Youth Advisory Council meeting for the year. We're going to go do some lawn bowling and have some ice cream. But I heard in the news today, one of our YAC members at JP2, and I'm actually going to read a snippet of my Grande Prairie Now story. Local high school graduate is the recipient of a $100,000 scholarship for the next step in his education at the University of Calgary. St. John Paul II graduate Nabil Malik is the recipient of the Suchlich Leadership Scholarship. The scholarship is described as being awarded to the top entrepreneurial-minded science, technology, engineering, and mathematics talent across the country. According to a post on from the high school, Malik was part of an organized citywide color run to promote wellness, has served as a lifeguard, not only protecting swimmers, but educating them, and help patients in the ER room feel seen and supported. But as Councillor O'Connor and I know, a very valuable member of our Youth Advisory Council, which is made up of 18 youth from across the city that advise City Council on issues that are important to the youth. So congratulations, Nabil.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton, and thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Burke. Just such a great group of kids that we have, and we'll send them off this year. We had 8 graduating and moving on this year, so that was good to see. Attended Cole St. Gerard, a couple of classes there. Attended the Invest GP mixer, the Upper Smoky draft plan. That was quite a lot of people, a lot of questions. Attended the Intercity Forum on Social Policy in Calgary and looked at around the province at what all the communities are doing of similar sized cities on social policy, and it was great information. attended Here Comes Summer event and served hot dogs at Muskasippi Park. It wasn't as busy as years past. It was a little windy and a little smoky, but we had a few dogs hit the ground, so it was great. The 7 over 70 event, of course, really enjoyed the people getting this recognition, very important. And then attended all of the 2026 budget deliberations. I just wish we could attract more people to come down and get involved. And it's, I don't know what we have to do. We've advertised it, we put it out, and the people that did come were very engaged. So the staff barbecue, I always love going around and just picking up everybody's plates and talking to everyone. Elvintive was a great meeting, and I went to the inaugural Men's Shed fundraiser, and it was a wonderful event, brought tears to my eyes, and even got me twisted my arm to donate. So anyway, went to the Mary Browns. I don't know how they could get that many people in one little shop, but it was very full. Yeah, okay, we're not bringing it up. And then lastly, I attended the 4th annual with Mayor Clayton, and she brought greetings on the 4th annual Filipino Association meeting, and it was pouring like you wouldn't believe. It was very cold. I had to go and get gloves and coats, and anyway, I needed warmers, whatever, but it was very good. And I also had the Yum Yum curries. It was very spicy. Anyway, that's my report, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Councillor O'Connor. As I wasn't here in person for last council meeting, and I forego my opportunity for roundtable, I'm going to take twice as long this evening.
Good.
So some of the items have already been mentioned, but I will continue, even though Councillor Bressy's trying to talk over me. Anyways, I attended the Youth Advisory Committee stakeholder meeting and graduation, and I wanted to thank the youth that really participated in that advisory committee this year, or council rather this year. They were extremely engaged. The numbers were up. They were a really strong group and advocate for many things in our community. So thank you to them. Thank you to Daisy Nellis for chairing that group. And I wish them all the best over the summer, and some of them we'll see again next year. I attended the Grande Prairie, or the provincial GPPS provincial announcement where the Minister Ellis announced the second phase of our funding for the transition on the municipal police service. I was very thankful for that announcement and able to speak on behalf of our organization as we updated on our transition, being currently ahead of schedule and on budget. So that was a great day. Also attended the Stampede Bust Out. Wanted to thank UCP Caucus for attending that community event. It was great to see them there. Also that day, which was a very busy day, attended the Grassroots Indigenous Business Mixer. Was a great opportunity to learn and hear about new Indigenous businesses that I wasn't aware of in the community. So thanks to the organizers of that. Attended with my council colleagues the first annual pancake breakfast. It was a packed event. The numbers were great. The sausages and the pancakes were hot, and people were very thankful for that gathering. With my colleagues, Reeve Olson and Reeve Marshall, had an opportunity to speak to the UCP caucus while they were here for their caucus meetings, talk about the advocacy priorities of our region, in particular things that are important to us at the city, spoke about the electricity distribution disparity, as well as other top priorities that we as the city support, as well as the region. With the Invest GP team, attended a meeting with the ACO Energy group here locally. It was an opportunity for us to share things that council's working on, and an opportunity for them to update us on some of their undertakings. Attended with Councillor Bressy and O'Toole the sod turning at the Ken Sargent House, which is adjacent to the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital. And that area there is turning into quite a little healthcare hub with the Musqueam sod turning, and now the Ken Sargent sod turning. adjacent to Northwest Polytech, who has partnered with U of A to train doctors starting this fall. So we're building out quite a healthcare corridor for ourselves, something to be quite proud of. Attended with some of my colleagues, FCM in Ottawa, where we had an opportunity to hear from the leaders of the parties, the federal parties, but as well conversations around housing. The CAO Burke and I had a conversation with Rogers Communication about some of the advocacy that they're working on. We had an opportunity to attend a TC Energy event to hear about opportunities they're working on, and as well attended a meeting with Intact Financial Corporation, who updated us on the great initiatives that we've undertaken, but as well as grant money for the wildfire prevention initiatives that we've taken. If you haven't taken advantage of that opportunity, I encourage you to call 311 to get more information. But really, the work through fire smarting your house is something that is a great preventative initiative and something that everybody should consider as we are in unfortunately, the thick of fire season, and it's something that I strongly encourage people to educate themselves more on. Attended the Grande Prairie Area Council on Aging in the week of seniors, in celebration of Seniors Week. It was a great little small meeting that I attended, and I know Councillor Bressie was there as well, meeting some seniors and really learn about the work that they're doing. I attended the barbecue and painted the Pride 2025 sidewalk. A great turnout this year, great barbecue, and thank you to the Pride Society for the continued work that they do in our community. I had the opportunity to bring greetings and speak at the Invest Grande Prairie Hospitality and Tourism Mixer. It was, as mentioned, a very well-attended event. As we know, this is the height of hospitality and tourism season, so I was very thankful to see so many of the operators be able to attend. With many of my colleagues, as well as the MD of Greenview and the County of Grande Prairie, attended the Upper Smoky Draft Review, which was facilitated through the ADM of Environment and Parks, as well as some of his colleagues, and really to give the elected officials an opportunity to learn more and provide their input. I had a Zoom meeting with Mayor Dober and the CAO of the City of Dawson Creek to talk about some of the work that we continue to do collaboratively and really where we can go from there. You will see more coming on that. I think that it's great for us to be able to recognize not only our collaborative steps on this side of the border, but across provincial boundaries as well. I attended with my colleagues the Work Northwest Alberta Luncheon and the launch. Thank you to the Chamber and the MD and the County and our Invest Grande Prairie team on the work that we've done in that entity. And if you haven't checked out that website, please do so. I also, with I know Councillor Thiessen was there, and I think Councillor O'Toole, but I attended the Day of Friendship hand painting crosswalk, and I think Councillor Bressie was there as well. It's the orange hand painted crosswalk in the city. It's an annual event, and thank you to the Friendship Center and those involved in organizing that and recognizing that extremely important initiative. I attended the Northwest Polytech annual fundraiser golf event. It was better than this week, but it still wasn't as sunny. It was an extremely windy day, and I haven't heard the numbers that were raised, but it's an annual event that does great things in support of Northwest Polytech. I attended and was able to be part of the Grand March and the Indian Relay races, who are sponsored by Inventive. The grandstands were packed at Evergreen Park. It was an incredible event. If you haven't seen an Indian Relay race, I strongly encourage you to do so. This was an excellent event. It was on for 2 days, and thank you to Councillor Blackmore for attending on my behalf the next day. And thank you to the organizers. That is an Evergreen Park initiative in support with many organizations, and I had an opportunity to have a brief conversation with Chief Sunshine and other elected Indigenous officials, but it was a great event. Also brought greetings on behalf of the 7 over 70, or at the 7 over 70 Awards on behalf of the City of Grande Prairie. A first inaugural event brought to you by the Northwestern Alberta Foundation. And it was brought up to me that not everybody may be aware that actually replaced the Community Foundation. So they're doing the same work on a much grander scale across northwestern Alberta. But what a great inaugural event celebrating 7 individuals who on various initiatives have done incredible work for our community. So I was very pleased to be able to bring greetings on behalf of council and the organization at that event. I attended with our CFO a budget stakeholder session that we do annually, and really with some community leaders, community stakeholders, leaders of organizations that we as the City of Grande Prairie do significant work with and have ongoing conversations. So it was a great room of mixed individuals from the Build Society to the Chambers of Commerce to the school boards. So I thank the CFO for the work that she did in that. It's always a great annual conversation. With council, had the first stakeholder meeting with Ovintiv and learned about the work that they're doing in our region, and they also in turn were able to learn about some of the work that council and our organization continues to do. I attended with a representative of the Invest GP team as well as the county and the MD, the Global Energy Show last week in Calgary. It is a significantly large show. We have a collaborative booth in that, and I had the opportunity to have conversations with many leaders within industry and learn about new opportunities and conversations that impact our region, but also had an opportunity to have a sidebar conversation with Minister Schultz and the Premier. It was a well-attended event, and if you get to Calgary, I encourage you to check out that new BMO Convention Centre. It is something else. Attended, as I was unable to attend convocation this year, I dropped in on the second day to congratulate President Sheen and the incredible work that institution continues to work as they expand their programming and the collaboration that they provide within our region. And graduation day is always a fun day, so had an opportunity to say thank you to some of the deans, but I wanted to thank Councillor Bressie and O'Toole for attending on my behalf. This past Friday, attended the Sunrise House, Odyssey House annual golf fundraiser, and I can tell you it was an extremely wet day. I haven't heard the funds that were raised, but it's a well-attended event and for very worthy causes, so thank you to the organizers of that event. Also, as Councillor O'Connor mentioned, I had the opportunity to bring greetings at the 4th annual Filipino Cultural and Heritage Music Festival. Last year's attendance was much greater, but it was a cold, rainy day. So thank you to the organization for putting on that event and creating awareness and educating people on cultural diversity of our community and opportunities that are abound in our community as we continue to be a very diverse city. I also, in the rain, read the proclamation at Lemonade Day. I had an opportunity to stop by a few of the lemonade stands, not as many as normal because there was a list of multiple events that day, but the kids were weathering the storm and there were some incredible lemonade stands as always. So thank you to the Community Futures Group who encourage youth to participate where they can learn more about marketing and business plans and what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and it's a great undertaking that they do annually. And last but not least, with Councillor Thiessen and MP Workington, as well as Reeve Marshall, was waterlogged and wet, and looked like a drowned rat, but I still attended the Grande Prairie Army Cadets and Ceremonial Review. And as Councillor Thiessen mentioned, what a group! That cadet group are award-winning. Their drill regiment and their group is something to see if you haven't had an opportunity to see them. Including the marching band this year was quite a ceremony. They had a couple retiring youth that one of them who I had the pleasure of knowing, and so great work that they continue to do at the Army Cadets, and it was a wonderful ceremony. With that, I will wish you all a good evening and call the meeting adjourned, and we'll see you soon.